What felt like a little bit of a joke about a month ago is suddenly getting very real. Is NC State about to miss the ACC tournament?
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, men's basketball is still on a losing streak, 8 games to be frank. We talked about this a month ago, roughly off air, and then we brought it on air a few weeks ago. And I've seen the jokes online. We've seen people chatter in the message boards talking about if NC State misses the ACC tournament, how humiliating that would actually be. We're sitting here on February the 11th, and if the season ended right now, not only would NC State be out of the ACC tournament, they're only one game above dead last place. They're tied for 16th with Boston College, 2-10 in conference. We're coming down the home stretch here. There's only 8 games left in the regular season. What's it going to take to keep NC State in the ACC tournament in those 8 games?
So luckily enough for NC State, the way this thing shakes out, you get a bunch of teams who are, and I know that this is not a comfort. I know that this doesn't bring anybody joy. But you get a bunch of teams that are at similar places as you coming up. Your next game is against Louisville. They're one of the top 5 teams in the conference. Other than Louisville, every single game that you have, Louisville and Wake Forest, those are only 2. Other than that, every single game you have is versus a team that is either in the bottom half of the conference or is currently on a losing streak themselves. You've got Boston College, who is right above us, tied with us actually in terms of conference record at 2-10. You've got Syracuse, who is currently losing to Miami, 5-8 in conference. You've got Georgia Tech, who's tied with Louisville at 5-8 in conference. You've got Pitt, who is 5-7 in conference, and then you've got Miami, who is dead last. So while the situation is grim, while the situation looks like, hey, it's a strong possibility that we missed the conference tournament, I'm not denying it. I'm not saying we're definitely going to get in and we're going to beat up on these bad teams, because guess what? We too are a bad team. But the schedule works out in a very, very favorable way, because again, if you look at this schedule coming down the pipe, UNC and Wake Forest are the 2 games that you have that are, hey, these 2 teams, upper half of the conference, other than Louisville. And all 3 of those games in a 4-game span. So after that, even if you go 0-4, 1-3 in that span, you have a relatively easy finish coming down the stretch. And again, I know, what is an easy finish to a team that is second to last in conference? Well, imagine if you had the dead last team in conference coming to play. Oh, you do have that. Imagine if you had teams that are even with you or slightly ahead of you to play. You do have that. So, it's not a silver lining. I want to make that clear. It's not a silver lining for this reason. You have the opportunity and potential to make it based off that, but imagine the disappointment and the embarrassment if you lose to a Miami and that's what keeps you out. If you lose to a Pitt and that's what keeps you out. If you get drubbed and embarrassed by a UNC team that just got taken out to the woodshed. I mean, I was smiling ear to ear with what Clemson was doing to them young men. So, it's seriously one of those moments where I wouldn't say that this is a silver lining, but I would say it's an opportunity for the Wolfpack to at least sneak in the tournament. Not saying that, hey, this is last year's team and they're going to turn it all around once they get to ACC tournament. Not saying that, but what I will say is, they don't have a gauntlet coming up to where it's like, boy, there's no shot of us making ACC tournament.
Yeah, the schedule ahead with the 8 games left, it's not daunting per se, but NC State is not a good basketball team. And so every single one of those 8 games is in fact losable. I can't look at a single one of these games and guarantee a win. That includes Boston College, and that includes on the road at Miami to conclude the regular season. NC State is not playing at a high enough level to assume that you can beat any one of these final 8 games. The last time I talked about an 8-game stretch, I had predicted that NC State would likely go 2-6 or worse in those 8 games. We are 5 games through that stretch, and we're 0-5. So that appears like that's going to come true. And now that places you in this predicament where NC State is very much on the brink of missing the entire ACC tournament. We talked about this off air. I can't even think about the last time a Final Four team missed their conference tournament the year after that. I know Miami missed the NCAA tournament the year after they went to the Final Four, 2 years ago, but they were still in the ACC tournament. Missing your conference tournament after winning it the year prior and going to the Final Four would be an abomination. It would be an abomination for this program that used to be great in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. It's fallen off in a major way. In my mind, this would be a new low point. And I get it. Maybe that's dramatic. We had the success at the end of last year, and it's great. We're always going to prop that up. But to miss your conference tournament the year after something like that goes down, I think that would be a new low for this program. And Kenton, I want to pose this question to you, kind of in the same vein as like a Florida State and Mike Norvell. They couldn't fire Norvell, even though they went 2-10. There's too much money tied up into them. Do you see this as a similar situation for NC State basketball and Coach Keats? Would they basically make him gut his assistant coaching staff, knowing that he's probably getting a free space here? Do you expect a full new staff going into next season?
I don't, but let me tell you why. This is a team, I hate to say this. I hate to say it. This team really is 1 year away. I know. Please don't stone me. Please hear me out. Hear me out. They figured it out down the stretch. MOC is not the guy we thought he was, right? Okay. And this isn't a shot at MOC. It's just the truth. It's just, he isn't the floor general supreme that he was thought to be. You know who is that? Plus some kid from Fayetteville named Trey Parker. That boy can absolutely get it done. So what does it mean that, hey, Trey's really good? If you can retain him and some of the younger talent around him, and Paul McNeil, I don't know what's going on with his shot right now. I don't know what's going on with it. But once he figures that out, and I'm not saying he becomes a 40% three-point shooter. Once he starts shooting decently, you start seeing immediate results on that. And so I look at this team and I say, yes, there needs to be changes. Yes, hey, things need to happen up front, especially front court wise that are like, hey, we need help in this area. But I mean this very genuinely. We've seen this before with Keats coach teams where we haven't seen this floor. We haven't. Other than once ever did we look this bad. But with that being said, the next year, I believe, was Terquavian Smith's freshman year. And then we were back in the tournament. And then we were back in the tournament the year after that. And then we made a Final Four run. So I'm not saying, hey, Kevin Keats is going to be good for every 3 years. Get ready for a Final Four run. But I'm saying give him some time. Give him some time. I'm not saying it's a great situation. I'm not going to tell anybody, hey, this is what NC State should strive for as its ceiling. I'm not saying that. But I am saying give him some time, see if he can work out a second cycle of, you know what, we're a bad team this year, and then we got a little better, and then we got a little better, and then we did something special. Because I take it. I take that. If once every 4 years we were Elite Eight, Final Four type of team, I'll take that deal. I'll live with that. Not saying that that's where Keats is, not ignoring the context of all of Keats' history before this. I'm saying in this instance, because you're fiscally tied up in him anyway and you can't get rid of him, you might as well find a way to enjoy it. And that's what I'm going to find to enjoy it in this moment.
I think it's going to come down to a situation where next year it either works or it doesn't. And if it doesn't work, it all gets kind of blown up. And that's a very similar conversation to one we're having about the football team right now. Let's go ahead and call our shot. It's February the 11th, 8 games left in the regular season. Does NC State make the ACC tournament, Kenton?
I think they make it by the hairs on their chinny chin chin. I think just barely, just getting over the hump. We're going to sweat it out in the Miami game like, oh boy. Are we going to do this? I think they just barely get it.
What's their record over the last 8?
I believe over the last 8, this is tough.
I'll read the games off real quick. So we have Louisville on Wednesday, Boston College at home on Saturday.
Win.
At Chapel Hill next Wednesday.
I'd say that's a loss.
Wake Forest at home on a Saturday.
I'd say another loss. So I'm at 1-3 right now.
Yep. At Syracuse on a Wednesday.
I'd say that's a win. I'd say you can get a win
At
there.
Georgia Tech on a Saturday.
Loss.
Pittsburgh at home on a Wednesday.
Win.
And then at Miami on a Saturday to end the regular season.
Win. So 4-4, 500 ball.
4-4. 4-4 would leave them at 6-14. Will that be enough? I have NC State going 3-5 over the final 8. I think they do pick off Boston College. I think they do somehow beat Syracuse at Syracuse. I think Syracuse is horrible. And as Kenton told you, Syracuse is about 45 seconds away from losing to Miami, who is dead last in the conference. That tells you a lot about Syracuse. But I think NC State will somehow beat them. And I think NC State will beat Miami to close the regular season. That's only 3 wins, but I don't think it'll be enough. I think NC State is going to miss the ACC tournament, and that will be a talking point, I'm sure, for the entirety of the offseason. Let us know what y'all think in the comments. Will NC State find a way to make the ACC tournament or not? Coming up next, we're going to get into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Tuesday sponsor is WayFair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little bit of TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into my routines. Whether you're tidying up, cleaning out, or you just want to give your space a brand new look to start the new year, WayFair has everything you need all within your budget. I'm currently looking for furniture, and their huge selection makes it easier than ever before to find pieces that fit both my style and my budget. My favorite part? The free and hassle-free delivery, even for all of the larger items. Wayfair's site is so easy to navigate, and I'm able to find everything I need in no time flat. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. Give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head on over to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Middle portion of our Tuesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First one here. Spoke about Isaiah James on Monday. Now on Tuesday, she has earned multiple National Player of the Week honors. The latest comes from the U.S. Basketball Writers Association. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. Isaiah James has brought a spark to this team that we had lacked for quite some time. And she's brought it consistently and in the biggest moments. You and I talked about, hey, there's a gauntlet coming up in the schedule, right? And it's almost the exact opposite of what we see on the men's team because, yes, the entire team is coming along, which, again, we have moments on the men's team where guys just are like, wait, we get great play from this guy, and then 3 or 4 guys just go missing on that night. But, yes, the whole team is coming along, but we've seen some performances from Isaiah where it's like, hey, don't worry about it. Throw it all on my back. Put it on me. Follow me. Y'all can't walk up the mountain. I'll carry you to a win in this one. And she has played some phenomenal basketball. I mean, really, to say that, multiple National Player of the Weeks, this is the first time we've had a player do that since Alyssa Kunane, probably.
Likely, yeah.
So, this is special stuff that we're seeing from her. And, again, putting it up against high-level competition. Like, it's not like she's doing this against, with all due respect, teams out of the Atlantic 10 or something like that. Or, this is ACC ball. And she's like, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to make this thing happen. So a whole lot of something.
Your stars have to be your stars. And you hear that a lot all across sports, but it is perhaps nowhere more true than at NC State with Isaiah James right now. Her stepping up, I think it was 58 points across 2 games this past week, 2 ranked wins, and NC State women's basketball is on an absolute tear right now. Isaiah James is going to have to keep that level of play up. We're not asking for 50 points across 2 games consistently the rest of the season, but she's going to have to step up and lead this team in that very same fashion. This team will go as she goes, and that sentiment has been true for mainly the entire season. She's the leading scorer, and we certainly expected her to be. But the way that the guard play is carrying this team right now, it allows the front court to be a little bit more free. Like we said multiple times, Tilda Trieger still learning the position, but when your guard play is this dangerous, it allows her to not have to press as much and have to force things to happen on the inside. She can seamlessly fit into this offense and the defense for that matter. And we saw this past game, a double-double on the road against a ranked Florida State team. Isaiah James is a massive reason for a lot of that success across the board. So she is certainly well-deserving of National Player of the Week, not once, but twice. Multiple honors for Isaiah. Humongous performance this past week. We're looking forward to more of those down the stretch. Second one here, also NC State women's basketball in neutral site and home games against Duke and UNC, 9-1 over the last 10 games combined. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. How many times do you have to teach you this lesson, old man? This team continues to get it done against their rivals. The Dirty Foot Club continues to have this thing of like, oh, they're the team in the triangle now. Carol Lawson and company, they're the new team in the triangle now. And every time NC State gets a hold of one of them in the old barn or in the ACC tournament, it's like, they're the new what now? Oh, don't worry. Don't worry. Hey, it's okay. Come over here. I have a special surprise just for you. You know what that special surprise is? A large L. A huge one. A massive one. For those of you who don't know, the screen is inverted, so it's an L to me, even though it looks odd to you. But in all seriousness, this is, this squad has continued to show up and show out in even previous iterations of this squad. This is why I say it's a Westmore masterclass. Even though the players are the ones on the court executing, Westmore has put belt to behind to both of these teams through their last coaches. Through their last coach up to now. They get the new coach. They get, we're a top 10 program in the nation. We're a top X program in the nation. We're getting all this talent. We're going to be good. All that work, and what did it get you? Yeah. So, way to protect the old barn. And also this touches on the conversation that you and I were having previously about like, how much did the soul of NC State men's basketball cost? Because this is very clearly saying something. Both of these teams, as much as I hate the Dirty Foot Club, I must admit, they're a good women's basketball program. Same with what Kara Lawson has done to Duke, right? I don't particularly care for Duke. I don't hate them. I'm very blah about them. But I look at what she's done at Duke. She's done a hell of a job. And yet, when they come to Reynolds, it's something in the air. It's something in those seats. It's something in the crowd noise. It's something in all the ruckus that causes these wins. So, again, man, this is a whole lot of something in my book.
It's getting it done. There's taking care of business, and then there's standing on business. And if there's one thing we know about Westmore, if there's business to be stood on, he gonna stand on it. Facing the blue teams, regardless of the sport, whether it's women's basketball or swimming or golf or whatever, if you wear the red and white for NC State, those two schools hold just a little bit more of importance than any other school you play. And that's why we get a lot of the hate for it being our Super Bowl, whatever, but we hate those two schools. We want to beat them regardless of what it is. Whether it's breathing, we want to breathe better than those two schools do. And so for Westmore, putting B2A against those two schools in particular, it's exactly what you want to see. Because not only is he running one of the top women's basketball programs in the country, but he's also handling business right here in the triangle. And those two teams are ranked as well. You got to play the Dirty Foot Club. I think it's coming up on this Sunday. It's a road game. Westmore's going to have to take the show on the road and beat them in the Carmichael Arena Center, whatever. It's bigger than our gym. I guess we'll see how that fares.
Ooh, massive gym over there. So terrifying.
Westmore's getting it done against the right schools and all the other schools as well. A statistic that you love to hang your hat on, 9-1 in your last 10 combined, home or neutral site. That's big because you won't see Duke again unless it's in the ACC tournament. We do have this one matchup coming up at the Dirty Foot Club. Won't see them again. We only see them one time this year, none here in Reynolds. So if we get them twice, the second time will also be on a neutral site. Bodes well, certainly bodes well, especially the way this team is playing right now. Third one here, NC State football odds to win the ACC championship, tied for 11th best in the conference, plus 6,500. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. This is where I like NC State. This is where I want NC State. It reminds me of Bane saying, "Oh, you think the darkness is your ally? This is what NC State enjoys. This is when we get our best NC State football. When everybody's looking like, that looks like about a 5-win team, maybe 6 or 7. All of a sudden, Dorn's like, oh, word, really? Hey, boys, pull the 9-win season lever. And I don't know why, but I have a strange feeling this season is either going to be a train wreck or an immense success. Like there's something in the air about this season that it just feels like this is where it all blows up, or this is where it all blows up. Where it's like, oh, okay. I wasn't familiar with your game, though. So we'll see which it is, but I'm very intrigued to see regardless.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The sentiment around this program is when they are expected to do the least, that is when you get the most out of them. And the odds have already reflected that coming into the 2025 season. There's no win total mark. We've kind of poked at that a little bit, but using some conclusions, you can expect that if there's 6,500 to win the ACC championship, and that's 11th best in the conference, their win total is probably going to be right around like 6.5. And the last time it was 6.5, they won 9. And that was with Brennan Armstrong in 2023. So we say that we get the most when everyone doubts them. That is what's currently happening. People are doubting them. Vegas is doubting them. So perhaps that places them in a good spot to prove everyone wrong yet again, but certainly a lot of work to be done between now and August. But for right now, I do think it's a whole lot of something for the doubting aspect, but I think the public certainly thinks a whole lot of nothing about the way this program's shaping out so far this year. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Tuesday show with some NC State baseball news. Not 1, not 2, but 3 relievers ranked in the top 100 in the country. That's going to play. NC State baseball news on the way to round out our show. Stick with us. Last couple minutes of our Tuesday show, talking a little bit of NC State baseball. The season begins this Friday. We're now just 3 days away. NC State has tabbed not 1, not 2, but 3 different relievers inside the top 100 nationally. We're talking 100 relievers in the country. NC State has 3 of them. Jacob Duden, we rave about him all the time on this show, number 1. The number 1 rated reliever in the entire land. We certainly knew last season that he was capable of a mark like this, but based on all the work he did over the summer playing with Team USA and the way that he's graded out his stuff, he can run it up there at 98 and then bang you out with a 91-mile-an-hour slider. I can only imagine he's gotten stronger. His endurance is better. The leg drive, I'm sure, is even more powerful than it was last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he flirts with 100 more than once. But for Jacob Duden to be tabbed as the number 1 reliever in the country, how big of a deal is that, Kenton?
It's immense. And for those of you who don't know, right, I'm not a huge baseball guy, but Grayson and this show have been forcing me to learn more baseball. A slider that maxes out at 91. The average speed of an MLB slider is between 80 and 90. I'm gonna let that sit on your plate for a second. This young man is throwing MLB stuff out there. Hell of a guy, man. Hell of a player. I'm really excited to see what this team is going to do. And we're letting you in on the Locked On Wolfpack exclusive. We will be at more of the games this year for baseball. Grayson and I will be in person, on scene for more baseball games than we ever have been, because we want to continue to provide you all great coverage. And hell, the chance to watch Jacob Duden in person, who could pass that up? Who's going to pass that up if you can? So, he's a spectacular closer. And I'll tell you what, I would be really shocked. And when I say really shocked, I mean like thoroughly blown away if we did not see our closers be one of our strengths this year.
Yeah, the bullpen as a whole, but the back end of the bullpen is definitely probably the biggest strength of the entire team, for being honest. The other 2 relievers were Derek Smith. He clocked in at number 7 in the country, so we have 2 within the top 10. And then Cooper Consiglio was at 47. That's a little bit perplexing, being that he's not really a reliever by trade. He's a lot more of a starter. Obviously, the back half of last year, he kind of transitioned into more of a relief role. I would anticipate that Consiglio will be more of a starter this year as well. If he doesn't get a midweek, he could be in line for being a weekend starter if he does slot into one of those positions. To have 3 relievers in the top 100, it highlights what NC State fans know, what ACC baseball fans know, and now what college baseball fans are learning across the country. NC State has one of the best bullpens in the entire country. And it was put on display, of course, late last year. The transition going from Duden to Smith late in the game, ball game should be over. The only real time it kind of fell apart was against Kentucky once you're in the College World Series, but that was a rare occurrence. Handing the ball over to Jacob Duden and Derek Smith in the 6th or 7th inning of games this year, that's going to result in a lot of W's. That's going to result in series wins, going on the road and taking an ACC series. That will be conducive to a lot of numbers in the win column for the NC State Wolfpack baseball team. So certainly a lot to be excited about. The season does begin on Friday, but hear me now and hear me through the entirety of the season. NC State baseball has one of the best bullpens in the country. All we have to do now is hand them a lead to close those things out. That'll do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button, drop your comments in the comment box, mash the subscribe button if you have not already. We'll see you right back here tomorrow on Wednesday for more. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.